You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network. YARAL Pharma, an innovative player in the U.S. generics marketplace, has partnered with the Pharmacy Podcast Network to educate and build a network of pharmacists. Learn more at YARALPharma.com.
Hey, welcome back to YARAL Pharma on the Pharmacy Podcast Network season. I don't know if this is season 3. Is this season 3?
I think it is season 3.
Season 3. Stephen, it's good to be back in the studio with you.
It's always a pleasure to be back with you, Todd. We always love to have the opportunity to talk about what's happening in the industry and also talk a little bit about what YARAL is all about.
Yeah, YARAL made a statement over the summer that you're going to start doing things differently, and it starts from within. It actually starts, I think, with leadership. So that's a whole nother subject and podcast we can get into. We know Jesse McCullough, who collaborated with us at the Veterans Pharmacy Care Summit that YARAL had sponsored last year. We're going to be doing that again in September, but he has an entire directive on leadership that we should invite him to talk about what it means to be a leader.
I think the thing about leadership is that people think it's always the person that has the title at the top of the org chart, but at the end of the day, leadership permeates throughout our entire organization if it's done well. So it doesn't matter if you're managing a whole group of people or you're an individual contributor, as long as you have the orientation and attitude to be a leader, you can be one. And quite frankly, that's what we want everybody to be in our organization.
So let's talk about what it means to do things differently. I've noticed it with regards to your content development, your involvement at the national trade shows, the way that you're reaching out to pharmacists who are specialists in specific things to discuss. So what makes you different? What do you think it does? Well,
it's kind of ironic if you think about the word generic. It seems that everything's the same, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the way we've approached building YARAL is, let's flip that on its head. I mean, the markets are changing. The dynamic between generic industry and brand is changing. How we engage customers is changing. So if we're going to sit here and do things the same, then ultimately it's not getting the same results. It's getting poorer results because as the evolution comes, if you're doing the same thing that you did 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, you're probably not going to be performing as well. And the evidence is that in our industry, we don't, for example, we don't describe companies by small, medium, and large anymore. What we do is they're commodity companies, they're specialty or complex drugs, they're biosimilars, or maybe they're a hybrid, like a lot of the larger generic companies now that are out there, such as Viatris or Teva. In many cases, they don't even try to position themselves as generic companies anymore because what they're really positioning is more high-value, complex generics along with brand, and they're actually creating a hybrid. So, I think what that simply says is that times are changing, and they always do. So if we don't adapt to them and we don't think uniquely to the way we've done it, then we are going to fail. And when I mean fail, ultimately our job is still to deliver high quality, accessible medicine to patients. But that maybe not enough anymore. Now we have to actually do more than that and start thinking in some cases like a brand company or thinking outside how we deliver generics. And that's really what I think is the spirit of YARAL. We use the motto or the tagline. I'm sure we'll bring it up here at some point. I've always said it's about the right marbles. It's not about the most marbles. And so when we think about what we're doing to help patients is that we're really looking at products that truly deliver on what we all do, and that and why we get into this industry, which is to help patients. So it could be something in terms of a supply dynamic issue. It could be a subpopulation of patients. It could be a specific new opportunity, or even bringing back products that are no longer available, but have a place to play. So the idea is to ultimately help patients get the medicines that they need at the time they need them. But we know that it's not just about us manufacturing and patients getting them. There's a huge value chain or supply chain that impacts both negatively and positively how we deliver that promise to patients, because we manufacture, but then we have to distribute them through wholesalers and distributors. We have to deal with PBMs and payers. We have to deal with pharmacy, and then ultimately get down to the patient or healthcare providers in general. So it's a long, winding path, and we need to continue to do things to make it better. And why not? We're at the kind of the tip of the start of that pathway, so we should be thinking that way.
So my dad, during my 6-year-old to probably 9-year-old period of my life, I remember that my dad would lock heads with me about truth and about being honest, because I was a little bit of a fibber then, and I would tell things to get attention, and he taught me what it meant to be a person of your word and being open and transparent when it's appropriate. This is what podcasting does to people that have something to share. If you do a podcast and you are overusing AI, or if you're just putting a script through, or if you're just reading something up verbatim, this doesn't allow the listener to really dial in to the point of who are you really? Who are you? Who's Steve Beckman? Who is this guy that he's the CEO of YARAL Pharma? This is demystifying the world of pharmaceuticals, and that even pharmacists don't really understand how it works. And by you teaming up with Mark Garofoli and Tamara Rugels and all these specialists, you get to take advantage of their insights and their direction, and more importantly, the application of what YARAL technologies are really there to dial into. And it's so much more honest. And I think that there's a strategy to this that you taught me about when we were talking about my company, and you were trying to give me some ideas and you were coming back to being able to trust people that you work with.
Yeah, trust and honesty is something that, we've lost sight of in many aspects of our lives, personally or professionally. And I think at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to manage what you're doing in a business environment or in a personal environment if you do that right. And transparency is a big part of what we've always tried to do. Historically, I've worked on both the brand side in the industry and the generic side through my 30 plus years in the industry. And, when I was on the brand side, especially many years ago, we would go out and do a lot of market research. We spend tens of thousands of dollars on quantitative or qualitative market research to create our marketing materials and our messaging and so forth. And, we would do these in traditional research kind of forms, but that's taking, a sample of 20 people. And then we start creating the content that we think is right for everybody on how we promote our products or how we promote other support programs. And what I think we lost, or at least when reflecting back on those years, is that we didn't listen enough. I think that's the problem. I think as an industry, we've had a tendency over the last 20, 30 years to kind of go out and get information, interpret it ourselves, and then we put it back out there. But that really probably misses a lot of the translation in terms of actually listening to our customers. And that's why, YARAL and teaming up with you has been such an important adventure for us, because we felt very clearly that pharmacy channel was a channel that was underserved, one, and has historically been. Yep. And two, they are so important to the delivery of healthcare and the delivery of medicine. So we should be thoughtful of what they're doing and understand what their problems are, what their needs are, what the opportunities are, and really listen. And I think that's what is kind of one of the pillars of doing things differently, is that we're really trying to listen more. And, Todd, I never probably even listened to a podcast until about 3 years ago when I first met you. And I don't know if I just was afraid of them, or I didn't know what they really were or how valuable. But what I can tell you over the last 3 years is having this platform, whether it be the podcast we're doing on behalf of YARAL or the creation that we put together in terms of executive dose, to really start talking and sharing and pulling back the curtain a little bit in a positive way, not a negative way.
Exactly.
It's not like we're going to, we're
not trying to nail anybody.
No, I mean, I mean, there's always,
because we're all humans. Like, there's so many people that make mistakes. There's so many things that happen out there that are being interpreted a certain way. And podcasting brings an element of, if you're honest with your audience, if you're not honest, I mean, there's people out there that can, obviously fake stuff, and anything can be abused. But this is an opportunity to come into an age of pharmacy that things are not the same. We're not in Kansas anymore. Toto. We're in a whole new landscape of pharmacy care and that ecosystem. And YARAL Pharma has really invested in relationships to help transform that into, if it's an expert, if it's a distribution partner like Key Source or Real Value Drug, or these partnership, IPC, Independent Pharmacy Cooperative, all these relationships that you've built, Stephen, are positioned to do very specific things to help us get access, to help patients get access to the medications that they need under the direction of the physician, but then the pharmacy specialist driving that therapy.
Yeah, where you have products for pain management, it's not our job as a company per se to decide which patients get pain management, what type of pain management, how it should be administered. That's why there are professional physicians, nurses, pharmacists that are doing that job. And I think what happens is that maybe there's a sense of control. Like, we do obviously live in a very regulated industry, so we have to follow certain guidelines, which we obviously do. Then it has to go down to the experts, right? Let the experts help us learn and engage in a different way, not just talking to, but talking with. And that's the amazing thing about the podcast, is that I feel like for the first time in my entire career, we get a chance to talk with the different people that are important. And we've done it, throughout the years in different programs, but it always feels to me that we're providing an educational program that we create, we give it, so we're talking to you, take it, instead of saying, what is the best way? And Mark Garofoli is a great one. When you talk about pain management, and his first thing and his mantra is very consistent, is that options are critical because every pain's different, every patient's different, every situation's different. So those are the people that need to be listened to and learn where products are used appropriately and so forth. But if we don't listen to them, we just create stuff versus having them help us navigate those different pathways. And then hopefully then what you do is you learn a little bit more, and then that can reflect back on all the work that we're doing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, doing things differently means is that we are open to understanding that we're not perfect. We're open to the idea that there's still things that we need and should and want to do better, both internally as an organization, as well as trying to navigate all the craziness that we have in our external dynamic to deliver healthcare to patients. So doing things differently, really, when it comes down to it, for us, it's about listening. It's about willing to accept that there is better. And, when I got in this industry out of college, I had 7 different job offers to either work at the Chicago Tribune, because I put myself through school, working at Syracuse newspapers, or working for Coca-Cola, or a couple others. But I had a couple offers to work in this industry. And although I didn't have a science background, a good friend of mine said, either you'll get the science or you won't. But the premise for me was I really wanted to do something that was meaningful. I could sell Coca-Cola syrup, or I could sell maybe a drug that makes a patient have a higher quality life. And I've been in it for 30 plus years, and I don't regret a minute of doing it. But at the same time, you have to have humility in what we're doing. And I think that's what we're trying to do. I mean, we have a really good group of colleagues that work at YARAL. We challenge ourselves every day to think about, this is how we promoted the product last year. Is that still the best way, based on what we've been hearing from our constituency throughout the supply chain? And that's what we want to do in the spirit of doing things different.
You're when we've talked about this and the kind of the direction, the leadership, and the pathway, what's that next? I can't say 5 years. It's just too much is happening, especially like with AI changing production and in research. But what does the next, let's say 3 years look like for you guys?
Well, I think we're excited that we've become an important part of Ipsos-CH as one of their 18 subsidiaries in terms of our ability to contribute to the organization. And when we say contribute, that means we are generating, revenue. We are generating a profit that the company can continue to reinvest. And the company has historically been an amazing organization through the ownership to reinvest in development and manufacturing. In fact, I've been doing this for about 30 years, and our supply chain team and organization at Ipsos-CH is really second to none. We've never really had any issues because quality is first. So I think when we look at the next couple years, it really continues to focus on that mantra of the right marbles, not the most marbles.
Yep.
So both in terms of our internal focus on our portfolio development as well as external, we're really looking for those products that meet a unique need. And it doesn't have to be universal. It might not always be specific to a patient population, but maybe it is. Maybe it is because market conditions have created a demand for a product that's not available. We continue as a pedigree of the company to always look on how we can make products better. And that means they're easier to take. Complex products that are hard to manufacture, we find a way to manufacture them in GMP and high quality. So I think what you're going to see from us over the next couple of years is that we're going to double down on two things. We're going to double down on our commitment to the right marbles, not the most marbles. So we'll never be the supplier that's going to be a commodity player giving you 200 different products and just on price. We're going to be looking for products that really meet a need in the marketplace, and we can build our portfolio slowly but consistently. And then we're going to deliver that portfolio products by doing things differently. And doing things differently meaning is that we will look at all aspects of what we do. I think one of the unique things about generic companies is that we kind of, coming in the marketplace, the generic industry has been around for, almost 30 years. It's always been predicated basically on price. And now we're asking ourselves, is there a way, can we do that differently? Because predicating our industry just on price is not per se a good thing for anybody, because when it's just price, then we come into the situation we face now in the industry where we have one of the largest drug shortages, because there's been hundreds of generic companies that have come in, and now we've gotten so cheap in our products that you can't justify manufacturing them anymore. So we have to make our companies profitable, right? That's one thing. But we have to do it in a fair way so that value can still make it through that whole pathway down to the patient, so it's available to the patient at an accessible price, and they can get their medication so they can be compliant, and we can do what we're here to do, which is improve the outcome of the patients. So that's what we're going to work on. We're going to work on continuing to build a portfolio that's steady and true. And we're going to continue to examine and look through listening first to figure out ways through that pathway down to the patient that we can do it better. And it starts for us really kind of on, it's almost like two ends. On the front end, how are we manufacturing and supplying products at a fair price and getting it into the system, right? That's what generic, or that's what manufacturers do. I think the second thing we're going to do is going to work from the bottom back up, which is patient oriented, which the next step up from that really is pharmacy. And that's what we've been doing. And then hopefully through the knowledge that we're gaining, maybe we'll help squeeze down and we'll find the ways to improve throughout the system. But there's, that's not something that an individual company can fix alone, because there's a lot of challenges and opportunities. But the one thing we want customers to know, what we want patients to know, what we want our partners to know, is that we are trying to do it differently. We are trying to be fair. We are trying to be thoughtful. And the only way you can really do that is to listen. Right now, our key areas are in pain and inflammation and hypothyroidism. Look at
but you have something new, don't you?
Well, we do have something that's going to come out.
I'm still trying to get it out.
Yeah, you're trying to get it out. So we will be. The company did launch. Just recently got approved. So it's a product that the company has invested in GMP level manufacturing to produce these ODF strips that you put on your tongue, and they will then quickly dissolve and then be absorbed through the gut. So this is a technology that the company is really exploring as a way to do things and expand the form factor offering to patients. And, an ODF might be really great for certain populations. I'm not here to say they're definitely better for one or the other, but patients that have problems swallowing or things like that. This is we have products on our branded side, IPSA USA, which we never really talk about, but IPSA USA is our sister company, if you will, and they do some very fantastic things in a number of areas, and they've already launched our ODF vitamins, which you can get on Amazon. And then we'll be launching other drugs like sildenafil in the ODF platform. So there's a lot of stuff that is coming down the pike. Doing things differently. One of the things that we've been exploring which is very rare in generics, is a cash offering platform to acquire drugs. It's an interesting dynamic in our industry now, because in some cases, based on the insurance that you have, there might be more valuable to pay for certain products in cash than it is using your insurance based on your different criteria. But cash historically in the pharmaceutical industry has been about maybe 5 to 10%, depending on the drug or category, in terms of being cash pay. But with the advent of GoodRx and people challenging other ways to get their products that might be more cost effective, in some cases cash might be the case, or some people that's the only way they can purchase their medicine. So again, just making sure that we examine everything, right? Examine and don't neglect a patient population. And when I say patient population there, it might be not the therapeutic area or subpopulation. Somebody has asthma, but they have asthma and comorbidity with this or that. I'm talking more about understanding the patients. And independent pharmacies really opened our eyes to that, because we traditionally see them as rural areas that they're servicing and something like that, but they're very different. I mean, just living on the east side of Pennsylvania versus living on the west side of Pennsylvania, the dynamics of the communities are very different. And those are the things that we need to think about. How are those patients accessing their medicines, or can't access their medicines? Are they doing it just through a pharmacy? How much provider support do they get? Can they see a physician? All those different things come into play. So if you think about that, there's a lot of answers or questions that can get answered because of how we communicate our products, because we understand how that communication of information and that delivery of healthcare is given to a patient.
So I'm excited about a strategy that you came up with. You're making Pharmacy Podcast Network part of it, which is pretty exciting. We're going to get into the details of this, but I'm going to give this away. I know, Stephen, once again, I'm throwing another curveball at you, but we're going to do a Doing Things Differently tour in community pharmacies this summer.
Yeah. One of the things that we did last year was to try to be more grassroots. And one of the programs we did was actually sponsor a local race car driver who is part of a group of guys that are probably between their 40s and 60s that are still getting down there and racing down a racetrack at 168 miles an hour in these little cars that beat the heck out of them at the end of the day. And so we're not fancy, we're not splashy, we're not doing deals with Nike and that kind of stuff. But what we want to do is we want to be authentic. And I think authentic, it goes back to the comment you made about companies being credible, companies being people can believe in them. And ultimately, we want people to believe in what we do. We want people to trust us. So we want people that hopefully, if anything else, believes that pharmaceutical companies can have their interest at heart.
Exactly.
The industry has taken a lot of lumps and bumps over the years, still do. And rightfully so for some occasions, but not for all. I think what, hopefully this will do partly.
You're the new... Stephen Beckman is the new Pharma Bra. Remember Pharma Bra?
Yeah. I don't know if that's
the positive Pharma Bra.
Yeah. Look at, I think most of the people I work with in this industry have gotten into it because they want to do it for the right things. I think, we have to accept the fact that we're delivering critical medicines and treatments. And if you don't take that seriously, if you don't have good intention, then it's one of the many things that can break down the quality of healthcare delivery to patients. And I want to be a small part of doing it the right way. So I think that's what's exciting. So this year we want to expand that kind of concept of just grassroots and have the conversation. The conversation was about, when you need something, go to the right physician, go to the right pharmacist, and many times it is the pharmacist, and choose what is best. We're not trying to say our product is best or our products are the right choice. It's a right choice in the right situation, and that only happens through the dialogue through the healthcare providers with the patient. And if our product's chosen for that right purpose in the right way, then it's a benefit for all of us, right? Yep. That means our drugs are being used. So we're going to add in Community Pharmacist Day, where we're going to go out to some of the community pharmacists, and we know you'll be the one helping us lead the charge to raise the spotlight on them. And then we're even going to do something unique. I didn't know what a Grange Fair was. It's a small community fairs, and we're actually going to sponsor what I believe is one of the last free Grange Fairs in Pennsylvania, if not in the U.S. And that's just the spirit of it's so cool, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about making money. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they do at the end, or they make the money to cover their expenses, but it's about creating something for the community to be involved in, to enjoy each other, enjoy it. And we don't have a lot of that anymore. We don't have those things where things are free and you can just go and hang out with your neighbor.
Do you remember Little House on the Prairie?
I do.
Like, our mom and dad, like, that was our go-to, like, the kids, because there was so much crap on TV. My mom and dad were extremely conservative. So Little House on the Prairie was like, yeah. So I remember how many fairs and how many like get-togethers as communities that they'd have, like, different episodes that it would be a backdrop to the episode. But I always looked at that and I'm like, why don't we have more, local get-together stuff like these Grange fairs?
I don't know. Maybe people are so busy now, or at the end of the day, our objectives are different than they used to be. I think today it's about what we have, or how much money we're making, or this or that. We all want to have enough money to pay our bills and have a nice home and do all those things. I think those are all really important. We want to take care of our children, put them through school if that's what they want to do, or give them a head start on a career, or whatever that might be. But at the end of the day, we forget that sometimes just celebrating people, celebrating community is important. And that's that's what community pharmacists are about. Yeah. I mean, if you talk about an individual or individuals that probably embody that spirit, it would be a community pharmacist.
Hey, listen, if you are listening to this show, if you do have some insights into different aspects of care, seniors, sports medicine, reaching out to the community with, once again, demystifying what's happening in healthcare to make people feel more inclusive of what's going on in their lives, that the individualism, the reason why people love their independent community pharmacies and their pharmacists, even in chain pharmacy, is because there's a relationship that develops, and these people see these people, 9-10 times more a year than what they're seeing their physicians, just because of the dynamic of how healthcare is working. And I want people to reach out to you, Stephen. And I think you are big on LinkedIn, aren't you?
Yeah, the company has a LinkedIn page. We also have a website, www.YARALPharma.com. If we do anything, we want to make sure people understand that we want to do things for the right reason, and to continue to be able to achieve that means we have to be willing to listen and open our eyes and take the criticism when we should, and take the praise when we should, and ultimately be able to identify those things that are unique or enhanced or different, and thus ultimately we do it because we still need to build that trust. Mm-hmm. And they should have that trust. Though no patient should ever worry about anything that they're ever getting from the pharmacist, because the quality of the product. So we will do that. So if anything is, our company will continue to try to build a sound portfolio of high quality products. We will continue to try to present them in a way that is transparent, honest, clear, and then hopefully, at the end of the day, we could be one of the many companies that start showing a brighter spotlight on the value of manufacturers in a positive way. And then that, I think when you create that good vibe and that good energy, even more good ideas come about. Yep. And that's what we want. We want to continue to stop doing things the way we always do them and start doing the way we should do them.
Hey, listen, it's been so good to have you in the studio. It's good to spend time with you. Want to make sure that the listeners know that we'll be back for something in supply chain or...
Yeah, we want to continue to tackle both in terms of what we do for the YARAL podcast and what we do on the executive dose is exactly what you mentioned earlier. And that is just to have a conversation that will broaden the understanding or viewpoint of what happens in our industry. Mm-hmm. So, it's supply chain in our business is extremely complicated. Yeah. Yes. One of the things that, whether you agree with all the things that are happening in our government or not, one of the things that our federal government has been trying to do is kind of rebalance things in terms of manufacturing in the U.S. For most pharmaceutical product is not manufactured in the U.S. 90+% of all API or the drug substance is produced offshore. So whether it be the strategic stockpile for products to support patients in a need in the U.S., which would be considered strategic or critical for the U.S., or whether it's just continuity of supply or things like that, that's probably not a bad thing if we could rebalance that a little bit. There's a lot of high quality manufacturers around the world, and I'm not taking anything away from any of those suppliers. But what we want to do is we got to continue to find ways to control costs, because like anything else, everything goes up in costs, whether it be the plastics for meter dose inhaler, whether the API drug itself, whether it be manufacturing costs, just because change parts in our manufacturing lines, which are very sophisticated, become more expensive and things like that. So, but at the same time, everybody wants the price to be lower. Yeah. So we've got to continually to challenge that in a way to make sure that we're still servicing our customer, which is ultimately the patient. So we'll talk about that, and we'll hopefully talk about a lot of other topics that are influencing, the pharmaceutical industry. And I hope that will encourage, as you said, a local pharmacist to maybe call us and talk about what's their challenges, what their opportunities are. Doing the Pharmacy 50 with you, which is a great program that you've launched in its third year now, right? Fourth year. Yeah. So, listening to them, understanding where they need to go or where they want to go is pretty cool stuff. Yeah. So that gives us the idea of how can we do it. And that's where really I think we want to call it like the bumps and bruises summer tour, and I've never in my 30 years have done a program where we're just going out and collecting a group of independent pharmacists, highlighting their contribution to their patients and their community, and talking about the good and maybe some of the challenge, but bring that spotlight. Because to me, that's more powerful than a lot of the PR or promotional things that we could do, because we are in our way helping the system get better. And ultimately, if the system's working better, then business takes care of itself. Yeah. Right. The product flow will go through, the right patients will get the right products, and everybody can be successful. So we're really, really pumped to do that kind of stuff. Excellent. Maybe I'm just getting old and I just wanted to do a lot of good before I, they hang me up and put me out to pasture or something.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. Subscribe on all podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Share this episode with a fellow person in pharmacy care and pharmacy administration, your distribution partner, the wholesaler that you work with. Just let them know that things are different now. Things have to be different now. We're in a different age of pharmacy and pharmacy care. Stephen, thanks so much.
It's always a pleasure, Todd.